Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of our series. Today we're gonna finish the bouncing ball exercise with a new ball which is gonna be the floaty ball. So I'm gonna go with my sphere. I'm gonna make this even bigger because it's gonna be like a beach ball. And let's do a little bit of modeling, right? So I know you guys like modeling, so let's do just a little bit of modeling. I'm gonna drag this guy, and then I'm gonna bevel those with a small fraction. I'm gonna select the faces there, top and bottom, and extrude this in. So when we do number 3, we get that sort of effect there. And then I'm gonna grab from, let's say, this edge to this edge, and then this edge to this edge, this one to this one, and this one to this one. We're gonna bevel again. I know we're getting angles, don't worry. Angles are not bad. If you know what to do with them, they're not bad at all. I'm gonna grab the new edge loop that we just created. Right there. Seems like I forgot to select this guy right here. So let's just select the whole deal. There we go, extrude. Bring this in. Now when we do number 3, we're gonna get this sort of effect. And what I'm going to do to get rid of the angles, I'm just going to say mesh, and I'm going to smooth. That's going to make this a permanent like smooth. You can see angles pretty much solve themselves. It's not the prettiest topology. We can, of course, clean it up, but for our main purposes, this is perfectly fine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign a new material. Let's do a bleen as well. And similar to what we did with the other ball, with the bowling ball, I want to show you how to do this with a color node here. We're going to use a ramp node now. I'm going to turn on number 6, and I'm going to start adding, I'm going to add 4 points here. The first one is going to be red. The second one is going to be green. The third one is going to be yellow. And the fourth one is going to be blue. There we go. I'm going to change this from B ramp to U ramp, so it goes from left to right. And I'm going to change this from linear to none, so there's no interpolation. So as you can see, we get this completely like filled in colors. And I'm just going to push this guys until we get like the four colors right there. And there we go. Let's push the, let's grab a red and add it here. And there we go. We're going to get this right here. Then, I mean, it's not necessary, but it's going to make it look nicer. I'm going to go to the front view. And I'm going to grab all of these faces right here. And down here, I'm going to grab all of these faces down here. Right click, assign another material. An object can have multiple materials. That's completely fine. I'm going to make this white. So now we have this sort of like beach ball material. Very simple. It's just going to look nice with the rest of the elements. I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the other bouncing ball. I'm going to group the bowling ball. And I'm going to press H to hide both of them. And now, let's start animating this guy. So I'm going to go to my front view, move the pivot point down to the very last vertex, and then move this to the bottom of the grid right there. And we're going to start animating. So let me turn on the balls here to make sure that we're bouncing at the same height. So I'm going to grab this guy. Let's call this a beach ball. And this one's going to be here. There we go. And that's going to be my first frame. So it's probably going to be a little bit less dense than the other balls, meaning that it won't hit the floor at frame 7. We're probably going to hit the floor at frame 10 or maybe 12. So I'm going to go here. And then it's going to bounce really, really high. Again, it's going to take quite a bit of time to bounce high, like here. And then it's going to take quite some time to bounce down, like here. Let's take a look at this first bound and see how it looks. Okay, it looks okay, but it's not exactly like what I'm expecting. Now I'm gonna show you another trick here. What if we copied the exact same frames that we had on the bouncing ball and then somehow scaled them? So I know that my high points are gonna be number 1, and then it's 7, 12. So 7 is my ground plane. 12 is my up plane, and then I believe it was 17, 21, 25. So we're gonna go 17 ground plane, 21 up plane, 25 ground plane, and then I believe it was what, 28 up, 31 down. We're definitely going to need a couple of more, so I'm going to go like 34 or 33 up, 35 down because we're losing elements, and then probably one last little bounce here, 37 and 39. So if I check this bounce right here, this is what we're gonna get, just like a traditional, very much like a bouncing ball, right? Well, here's where knowing the tools and understanding how to use them will allow us to save a lot of time. So I'm gonna go into my graph editor, and the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break the tangents. So I'm gonna grab all the lower tangents and break them. And we're gonna start like messing around with this. I want this to look very, very floaty. So we're gonna go here. Here you can see how the transformation there is changing because we're not in a keyframe right now. We're in the middle of the in-betweens. Oop. Let's grab everything and frame. There we go. If you grab all the curves and frame, you're gonna get a nicer distribution. And of course, this one's gonna be right there on the ground. There we go. So now if we take a look at the bounce right now, this bounce is going to resemble pretty much what we had on the original ball, right? And we know that the bounce is right. The only thing that's not right is the timing. We want this to feel floatier, and therefore we want things to last longer, right? So the distance between my keyframes should be bigger to allow for that effect. How are we going to do that? Very easily. I'm just going to make more room here. I'm going to grab my range slider and give myself more frames. I'm going to grab all my keyframes here. And instead of moving them with this middle arrows, which are the ones that we used before, I'm going to grab this outermost arrows, and I'm going to start scaling this. So I'm going to give it double the time. Let's go all the way to 80 frames. Now, by scaling them, the time increases. And now, if we take a look at the animation, it's going to look way, way floatier, right? Way, way lighter because there's more time doing the exact same animation. Now, the problem here is that by doing this scale, sometimes the frames will not land on an exact frame. So for instance, this one is at 42.5. This one right here is at 50.80. And having like not properly aligned keyframes could potentially cause issues later on. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab all of the frames after scaling them. Let's give them a little bit more scale. I'm going to right click and I'm going to hit this button here that says snap. What snap will do is it will snap the keyframes to the closest like whole keyframe that it has, and we will have the exact same proportion, but with more time. And by having more time, this ball looks like it's a lot lighter than the other ones, right? It looks like it's filled with way, way more air. Now, will this ball have compression? Will it have squash and stretch? And the answer is yes, but probably not as much as the other balls, right? Because it won't bounce like strongly all the way to the top. So first, let's fix the issue of the distance. Since this is floatier, I'm gonna actually make it move way more than the other ones. So probably all the way over here. Let's see if the auto keyframe works nicely there. There we go. Perfect. And same deal that we did with the other ones. I'm gonna go to the translate here, press F, and let's just like interpolate this a little bit nicer so we have a nice transition here. Perfect. So bong, 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 bong. There we go. We could even add like another little bounce here, but I don't think it's necessary for now. Now for the squash and the stretch, we definitely want to go to the first frame here, squash it just a little bit. I'm gonna say 0.9 only. And let's do 1.1 and 1.1. And I'm actually going to keep this squash pretty consistent. So anytime it hits well, let's go here first. Let's just hit S. I'm going to go to the high points first. And let's just set this to 1 because there's no keyframe here to make sure that when it's on the high point, it retains its original size. So there we go. So I don't really think we need that much stretch either. So I'm just going to push this to like, let's say 1.1. And these guys are going to go to 0.9 and 0.9. We, of course, are going to rotate this around. So boing, boing. And then we retain or recover our original volume. Here, we're going to go to the other side. And same deal, it's going to be 1.1, 0.9, and 1.1. Or sorry. 1.1 here, 0.9, and 0.9. So we're gonna have doing, and then doing again here. Making sound effects is part of being an animator, so have fun with that. No, really, like making sounds actually really does help, like get your timing right and stuff. So don't feel ashamed if you need to do like your sounds to understand what you're going for, because it's really helpful. So I'm gonna keep the same 1.1.9 effect on the squash and stretch on the first two bounces. And the reason I want to do this is there's not a lot of deformation, so it keeps most of the main like effects. Now here I will definitely like start reducing the amount of effects. I'm gonna go to like 0.95. I'm gonna go 1.05 here and 1.05 here. And then one frame before that, remember, we're coming from the squash, so we're gonna stretch a little bit, so 1.05 and 0.95. There's easier ways to do it. Actually, there's a couple of rigs that we're gonna be using later on that have this sort of options, like automatic. However, I do feel like for this first exercises, it's always good to understand why we're doing this sort of stuff. Now here, I'm not gonna add any more stretch. I'm just gonna add squash. So I'm gonna say 0.95. I'm gonna say 1.05, 1.05. And then here, I'm pretty much not gonna add anything. Like maybe a little bit of squash here, like 0.97 there. That will be 1.03 here and 1.03 here. Just a slight squash there. And then it's just like the basic shape. So if we take a look at how this looks, we get this. Boing, 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 boing. And now, if we compare this to the rest of the spheres, to my initial bouncing ball and to my bowling ball, we're gonna get a very nice effect. Now, here's one small issue that we have. And the problem is that we animated this guy and we didn't move it to the side so that we could see all of the balls like bouncing at the same time. What can we do here? Well, I know that we need to move this in the Z-axis. One thing I could do is I can go right click, and I'm gonna say break connection just on this channel right there, on the C channel. And if I move this to the side like this, now, since that channel is not animated, I can move this in C any place I want, and the animation is gonna jump, or it's gonna look exactly the same. See that? So now let's add a little bit of a proper chord chart for the whole thing. And we get this. I think I'm actually gonna move this guy to the back, like this, so that we see all of them bounce at different speeds. Pretty cool, right? So we have a normal bouncing ball, like a rubber ball, and then we have a bowling ball that's very heavy and rotates a little bit, and finally we have this beach ball that goes all the way to this area and bounces very, very nicely. We can, of course, turn on the light, the shadows, motion blur, anti-aliasing, like everything. Turn off the floor so that we don't see it. Let's find some nice, like a nice, actually like this. Like you wait all the way until this thing just goes out of frame. I think that's fun. And yeah, I'm just gonna right click here, play blast, and we're just gonna save this as beach ball. I'm gonna hit play blast. Wait for the video to be created. And there we go. Perfect. Now, remember, all of those videos are being saved to your project file. So if we go into my projects here, and we go into movies. Oh, no, that's not the one. That's the one for the YouTube channel. If you hadn't checked our YouTube channel, check it out. We upload things every week. So here in the movies, we're going to have our original bouncing ball, just like a rubber ball. Very cartoony, a lot of squash and stretch. We have our heavy ball, which is just a bowling ball there. And finally, we have our beach ball. It's very slow. Boom, 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 boom. And there we go. With this, guys, you should be able to understand the basic principles of animation. You should be able to animate pretty much any like simple shape, like moving, translating, rotating. We're going to be doing some more exercises inside of this first module just to understand the remaining principles of animation. Some of those principles we're going to be exploring later on in more advanced modules. But for now, we're going to jump onto a very cool exercise. It's called the pendulum. That's the next one. And we're gonna leave it as like this. So make sure to finish this exercise. Again, And believe me, guys, if you don't follow this advice, you're not going to progress as an animator. Practice. You need to practice. I've done this exercise hundreds of times, literally hundreds of times. So that's why I can get this to work very, very nicely in fast in fast times, and I can make sure it looks nice, right? But believe me, my first times it was looking very, very bad. So always do it once, do it twice, do it as many times as you want. Practice, and I'll see you back on the next one. Bye bye.